Welcome back to Rewitched, a charmed 1998 rewatch journey. I'm your host, Jess Sabanko, and I can't wait to share my thoughts on one of my favorite shows with you. Though episodes are now shorter, I will still be keeping them spoiler-free and welcome fans new and old to join me on my journey here and on social media at Rewitched_pod on Instagram and TikTok. Currently, I'm on season 5. So this week we're talking about season 5, episode 13, House Call. Another really enjoyable episode in my opinion. In terms of our innocence villains of the week, we do have almost all of our characters falling into that innocent category. We have Glenn, his girlfriend Jessica, Spencer Ricks, who we'll talk more about him. And then of course we have the sisters also falling into that category when the witch doctor, who becomes our antagonist of the week, but was originally there because of these manifestations of like residual evil energy that remain in the house, which then causes him to turn on the sisters. To get a little bit into that witch doctor storyline before I cover each of the sisters themselves. So the episode starts out, we find out that there are these like poltergeisty types of manifestations appearing because of all of the evil that they vanquished in the house over the years. It's kind of manifested into this big thing. Leo brings up that this has happened before, but it's never been dangerous. Of course, shortly after he says this, it does literally attack Phoebe, and then that's when they realize they have to do something about it. And they do decide to summon a witch doctor, which Leo kind of warns against. He's like, oh, like they're kind of tricky. The elders don't want us working with them. And Piper says, well, sometimes I don't like working with the elders. So, we're kind of even there. And that was really funny. A lot of the lines throughout this episode are really witty. It's really well put together, very comedic. And I really like what they do with the sisters in this episode. But again, I'll get to that in each of their individual little storylines. When the witch doctor does appear, I actually really like that he's very quick to like bring up these stereotypes and how he's kind of modernized himself and defies these. I think that a lot of times in the show, they do have a tendency to play up stereotypes and make these storylines that don't always seem culturally appropriate or respectful to these other cultures that they are taking these ideas from. So I do like that there's commentary on that fact in this episode because, like I've talked about previously, there definitely have been some appropriation and possible misrepresentations going on throughout the show when it doesn't come to those very like white Eurocentric mythologies that they're drawing from. In terms of his actual storyline, I think it's really interesting that we see right away that he is suspicious of the sisters, that Leo is suspicious of him, and I kind of like the dynamic between the two. The little scenes between him and the two manifestations that he takes out, first the baby and then Big Mama, which again, another little like comedic element of the episode, is really quickly solved. And then we see that he is stealing the sisters' things. He tries to cover this up, saying that he's using it to kind of separate their energy from like the demonic energy as he's trying to draw out these spirits. Then we do see him return to the other witch doctors and they start putting these hexes on the sisters because he believes that they draw too much evil attention and that he's never seen anything like this, and he thinks that ultimately like their distractions with their petty likeness in real life is going to ultimately destroy them. And so him and the other witch doctors determine that they have to eliminate them, which is kind of crazy, but they do go for it and they decide to use their human pettinesses in order to get them really obsessed with these things and then destroy them that way, letting their obsessions consume them. So in terms of how this affects each of the sisters, so for Piper, it's cleanliness that overtakes her at the very beginning of the episode. The thing she's most frustrated with these demonic manifestations is that they're moving things that she's organizing into the baby's room. Again, she's very much getting prepared for that and wanting things to be perfect in that sense. We always know that Piper likes things clean and organized anyway. Once the hex takes over her and her eyes glow, she instantly becomes obsessed with cleaning. Now, prior to that moment where she starts throwing away all the dishes because they can never get clean enough and then blows up the window because there's water spots on it, showing just how much this need for cleanliness is taking over her, we do see that she and Leo had kind of figured out that there was something off with the witch doctor, because the stealing her lipstick, she was kind of like, oh, whatever. Even him stealing the picture of the sister, she was like, oh, it might have just fallen out of the frame, like trying to believe that it's fine, he's just a good guy. But then once they see that Paige's keys are definitely missing and that he stole Phoebe's toothbrush, she decides to start working on a summoning potion, but then is distracted when the hex hits her. As for Paige, her hex really has to do with Glenn, who's coming back into town. At the very beginning of the episode, we see them on the phone, and she's really excited to see him because she wants to tell him that she wants to get back together, that she wants to finally make things work between the two of them. She mentions later that every time she's gone on a date recently, she finds herself thinking about him. And so when they go to meet at the park, which is their usual spot, they're both kind of like going through this nervous energy, kind of catching up a little bit, want to like share whatever their news is. And she lets Glenn go first, and he reveals that he's engaged. His fiance Jessica then appears. We see that like Paige is very awkward about it. We find out back at the manor that she was rude to her, and she kind of goes off on this whole rant about how like she's not his type, she's blonde, all this type of stuff, which Charm really does not like blondes too much. And especially Paige doesn't seem to. So she kind of goes into this whole thing, and then she does decide that like she's a good girl, like she needs to apologize, she was rude. This woman didn't deserve that. Like, she's jealous, she acted out of that. And I get it. I really get where Paige is coming from and find this storyline very relatable. It's never easy to see your ex move on, especially when you still have feelings, especially when you are hoping that you could work things out by seeing them, only to find out that they've now met someone else. So I really do understand where her storyline is coming from in this episode, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really well done, and I like the way that they kind of created it for her. In terms of Phoebe in this episode, so what she's dealing with in terms of her hex is overtaking of her competitiveness. So we find out there's this other columnist, Spencer Ricks, for another local magazine, who's very like chauvinistic, talking about women needing to be in the kitchen and all of those types of things. And Phoebe hates him. She wants to get rid of him. She even says when she confronts him later in the episode, like, I wouldn't mind losing readers to a legitimate writer, but that's not what you are. Like, you're a fraud, you're a chauvinist, you're misogynistic. And then he kind of gets really misogynistic with her. But she's meeting with Elise, and she's talking about how like she doesn't like it, and she's like very competitive, and like she'll do anything to like vanquish or take out the competition basically. And that's when Elise tells her about this photo shoot and kind of hints that she should like show some skin in order to get viewership, which again, this is Elise really just not being understanding of Phoebe as a woman, being like, oh, well, like, you're this hot young thing, like, just show a little something something and we could get our readers back. Like, it's kind of gross, and it really is that internalized misogyny trying to play up something. Now, it would be one thing if Phoebe wanted to empower herself through her sexuality that way, but having other people kind of push it on her, even like the photographer who is depicted to be a gay man is doing the same thing later on in the episode. It's really gross, and I don't love that aspect of this overall storyline, but it definitely does have that social commentary that is, you know, true to what happens a lot of times in life and in these business situations. So as each of the sisters get hexed, Paige is horrible to Jessica and Glenn, and ultimately decides to bring Jessica to that volcano where they leave people sometimes and take her place, glamoring into her. I think this is the first time we've ever seen Paige use that white lighter power of glamoring, which is really exciting, and then have Glenn marry her instead in Jessica's place. Piper, again, obsessively cleaning. She's like taking down shingles from the roof because they're dirty. She's covering everything in plastic. And we have Phoebe go to Spencer Ricks, who again, she confronts in that parking lot of his job and then uses a potion to turn him into a turkey. And she's talking about earlier as she's making the potion with Piper, how she might have to flee the country. And Piper's like, no, not until you clean up. You won't do that. really this obsession with having everyone clean. And even when Leo comes and is like, Paige is doing all this crazy stuff, like we have to do something before she hurts an innocent, and she's like, well, not until she cleans her room. Like, it's again that peak comedy. Then Leo starts to figure things out when Piper says, like hell you're bringing those muddy shoes into my house, because when he goes to walk inside to follow her after Phoebe, she blows him up, which again, very funny. And then he realizes where Jessica might be, goes, rescues her. He takes her to the wedding venue where Paige, as her and Glenn are about to get married. And then when Paige sees the two of them together, how distraught he is by Jessica being hurt, it snaps Paige out of the hex. Paige and Leo then go back to the manor to try to figure out what they can do to get Piper and Phoebe kind of broken from their own hexes. Leo says that it's very individual and they have to figure out how to snap Piper out of it. They realize that Piper has used a vanishing spell to make the house disappear because it was so dirty and they need to just start from scratch. And Leo's like, well, what about Phoebe? Like, Phoebe was in there with the turkey, and of course, realizing that she might have disappeared her sister, then causes Piper to break out of it. They go running up to the house. She quickly comes up with a spell to make the house reappear. They do find Phoebe, who's about to kill the turkey. Piper's the one to realize that the turkey is actually Spencer Ricks. She tells Leo to get Phoebe out of there and keep her away from the turkey while they go to deal with the witch doctor. So her and Paige show up at the witch doctor's place. They confront them. It's very really witty, really well done. The way she's like, well, you guys are gonna deal with our good powers and we'll take you out. That's when the older witch doctor is kind of like, no, like if you really are good, we're on the same side. And that's when Piper brings up the fact that evil is attracted to them because they are so good, and by eliminating the charmed ones they would actually be letting that evil live, which is obviously the worst thing of all. And so ultimately she does convince them to undo Phoebe's hex, which is just in time for her to not kill Leo because she's walking towards him with a butcher knife. And that's when he says, explains to her what's going on. She realizes what she did to Spencer Ricks. Then later on, we see them at P3. Leo is actually working, wiping down the bar and stuff. I'm like, oh my God, Leo, you're contributing to your household and actually helping Piper out with something amazing. I will say overall, Leo was actually very useful in this episode and did do a lot to kind of help the sisters out. So credit where credit's due to Leo. So Piper and Paige come in. Leo knocks over a thing of peanuts. It breaks on the floor and he's like, oh, I'll clean that up. And Piper's like, oh, just leave it for now. It's fine. It's not a big deal. We can get it later. And they're like, wow, that's not driving you crazy. She's like, no, well, maybe a little. And then she talks about how she learned the lesson of having to deal with a little bit of mess sometimes in life. And she's like, especially with the baby coming, I hear that they're a little messy sometimes. It's this really cute little moment of them bonding. Paige, prior to this, had gone to see Glenn and Jessica, was able to let them reconcile by sharing that, she never wanted to hurt them. She was under a spell, and ultimately she sees that the two of them are meant to be together and her and Glenn are just meant to be friends, which obviously did have to be difficult for her. I have a lot of empathy for Paige and also just really admiration for the way she handles this situation. Does make sure to get them back together and to undo those bad things. Once again showing that the charmed ones are not just magically good, but they're genuinely good people, right? I don't know that I'd have the strength to help my ex get back with his new love interest after I just broke them up, right? I don't know that I could do that because I don't think I have that amount of selflessness, I'll just say. Back at P3, we then see her kind of saying that. Then we have Phoebe arrive telling them that she did bring Spencer Ricks back. Unfortunately, he's not going to remember anything and not learn any lesson from this. However, she's not really worried about him stealing her readers anymore. We see that she's on the cover of 415 magazine, which if you guys remember, that is the magazine that Prue used to work at. So a nice little callback to that. The headline on the page is basically why read Phoebe when you can see her, and then we see that there's this centerfold image of her that we don't see. I'm assuming the bikini photo, maybe even more skin than that, though this is not Playboy magazine, so I'm not sure how much they can realistically show. But we do get that hint, and then there's this cute little moment where they throw the magazine to Leo because Phoebe wants it back and he starts running away. Really nice, cute ending to the episode. So like I said, I really enjoyed this one. I like that that we got to see these little aspects of the sisters' personalities, and the way that, like Paige says, like, yeah, they have these little flaws, but ultimately, like, the fact that they are human, that they do care, is what makes them amazing witches. And so I liked seeing those little bits of their personalities become so extreme in this episode. I thought it was a lot of fun. In terms of what's coming, what I'm looking forward to, again, we're getting closer and closer to a magical baby. We're definitely moving forward with the other sisters' storylines. I mean, we've definitely seen dating for Paige in this season. So now seeing that she has to move on from maybe what has been preventing her from truly having a real relationship, which was those lingering feelings for Glenn. Maybe we'll see something new for her in the future. And in terms of Phoebe, it seems like she's back on that career focus now that Cole is gone, so definitely interested to see what the rest of the season holds for her as well. Yeah, that's all I have for this one, so hope you'll join me back next time.